Does the romantic, raunchy comedy political satire Long Shot really work, or is it too ambitious? Charlize Theron plays Charlotte, who is the Secretary of State of the United States, and she is making a run for the presidency. Seth Rogen is Fred, and he is a childhood friend who is also an out-of-work journalist, and he comes on board to be her speechwriter. There is a bunch that I liked in this film. I mean, when it is being a romantic comedy, it has a lot of heart. Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen together, when they're in that romantic comedy just arena, their chemistry is awesome. And it really works, despite them visually being polar opposites. I mean, Charlotte as a character is beautiful and elegant, and Fred is kind of like a homeless troll. But despite all of that, I mean, they work together and they're believable. And as believable as they are, the supporting cast helps to round that out even more. We have O'Shea Jackson Jr., who is believably supportive as Fred's best friend. June Diane Raphael and Ravi Patel are really good also as Charlotte's assistants. I mean, they're in the political arena, they're super smart, they're well driven, and they add just a really good portion to the cast and to the story. We also then have Bob Odenkirk and Andy Serkis, and they bring in the political satire part of this. And I loved them. I mean, Andy Serkis took me a little bit to recognize. I mean, he looks like him, but it was off just enough where the first time he came on camera, I was like, I think that's him, but maybe not. And then as he came on more and I got to see more in his eyes and more of his mannerisms, it was like, yep, that's him. Seth Rogen can be too over the top for me sometimes. And in this, he has moments where he is over the top and he is extreme, but that's also part of his character. So it works within this arena. But what I liked most is when he was understated just a little bit, when he brought it down a couple of notches and was able to just, you know, kind of play the straight man almost, because at that point he became sincere and he became believable, he became relatable, and at those moments, I mean, he really shined for me and I enjoyed his performance so much more in that. Now, a lot of the jokes in Long Shot really worked, but there were a bunch that felt really forced, or that they went on too long. I mean, sometimes you don't need to explain the joke, just let it be. It'll not only cut down on time, but if you have to explain it, then it's not funny. There were also some raunchy moments to the film. Now, I kind of expected a little bit of that, and to some degree, some of it I was okay with because it wasn't too over the top and it worked within the narrative. But then a lot of it they just took too far, in my opinion, that I didn't like it, and I didn't think that it added anything to the scene other than time. I mean, for some of these, you could have ended it or shot it in a different way that didn't make it as raunchy, but we still get the joke and it still moves the story along and gets you to your end point just as you were going to, without needing all of this excess in there. While it's mainly a romantic comedy, Long Shot is also poking fun at political news and using satire to do so. And in that, they're specifically talking about Fox News without naming them. And it really worked for me. But there were times where all of this political satire felt kind of forced or like crammed in and made the story and the narrative a little too convoluted. Like they were just trying to pack too much in to the story that they had. What that did is it had an effect of making the film feel kind of long. Now, towards the end of the movie, or at least towards the third act, somewhere in there, the tone shifted of the film. And it drifted away from its rom-com roots and just kind of, I don't really even know how to explain it. I could just feel it as I'm watching it. Like all of a sudden it literally shifted and we're going a different direction. And you can still keep the satire in there because it was sprinkled out throughout the movie. So it's not so much that they focused on that, but just overall the tone shifted just a little bit. But luckily, as the movie wrapped up, they found where they were going again, got back to the rom-com roots, and did that well. Now, there aren't really any twists that you don't see coming. I mean, it's fairly predictable and we know where the story is going for the most part. And now the trailer itself, I think, ruined a lot of the jokes in the movie. They showed just way too much in the trailer because as I got to these jokes, I didn't laugh nearly as hard or sometimes even at all because they had been telegraphed to me just way before I even got to the theater. All in all, Long Shot is a decent romantic comedy. Personally, I could do without all the raunch, but I do know that a lot of people enjoy that type of humor. There is sex, possibly some brief nudity, slapstick violence, a whole lot of profanity, and very raunchy humor. I give Long Shot 3 out of 5 couches. I'd love to know what your favorite Charlize Theron performance is. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.